Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take complex narratives, high-stakes history, and dense source material, and give you the fast track to being the most informed person in the room.
Today, we are strapping in for a really terrifying and foundational collision. We're analyzing the initial dramatic historical sources detailing the first documented arrival of one of the universe's most enduring and chilling adversaries, the Cybermen.
Yeah, and our mission today is to really dissect the events surrounding that high-pressure crisis at Space Tracking Station Snowcap in the year 2000 AD.
And of course, the catastrophic cosmic fate of Earth's long-lost twin planet, Mondos.
This isn't just a simple invasion story, it's a terrifying philosophical conflict, and it's set at the literal ends of the Earth.
Exactly. We're exploring that moment when ultimate pure logic decides that human emotion is a weakness that has to be eliminated for the sake of survival.
So we'll cover the technological origins of the Cybermen, the high-stakes personal drama of the human characters who are, trapped at the South Pole.
And the incredible events that led to a cataclysmic regeneration for our central time traveler. It's the story of how a desperate attempt to achieve immortality led to this complete, terrifying dehumanization.
And that set the stage for one of the most ruthless power grabs in cosmic history.
We really have to understand the price of that eternal life to grasp the depth of the threat they posed. Okay, let's unpack this.
All right, so to truly grasp the threat that ultimately landed at Snowcap, we have to look far, far beyond Earth, don't we?
We do. The sources take us centuries ago to a planet so far distant it seems like pure legend. Pylos. According to these records, the entire concept of the Cybermen was born from a desire that is so intrinsically human and, frankly, tragic.
The pursuit of immortality.
The pursuit of immortality. That's the core irony, isn't it? They weren't born as these cold, metallic monsters. They were a sophisticated race, and they were struggling against the inevitable.
Right. Their planet was failing.
Their planet's resources were failing. Their lifespan was contracting. They faced rampant disease, extinction. And their scientific response was the ultimate attempt to cheat death, perfecting the art of cybernetics.
Which is, it's the complete and total reproduction of machine functions within a human body.
Yes. And it sounds like this horrific attempt to merge biology and engineering. The sources describe the transformation process as gradual, almost pragmatic in its brutality.
So it wasn't a sudden conversion?
No, not at all. It was a slow replacement of everything that was failing, a step-by-step surgical nightmare. As their bodies aged and, succumbed to disease, they began replacing the parts.
Okay, so what went first? The obvious things.
First came the obvious failing systems. Limbs replaced by sophisticated plastic and steel, but the process quickly escalated beyond simple prosthetics.
Because mere mechanical limbs weren't enough to achieve true immortality.
Precisely. The sources confirm the staggering level of biological replacement that followed. The internal systems, the human circulation and nervous system, were fundamentally recreated or replaced entirely to function with this machine-like efficiency.
Wow.
And the final, most devastating step, which defines the Cybermen we know, was replacing the organic brains with complex inorganic computers.
And that's the moment.
That's the moment the race transitioned from being cybernetically enhanced life forms to truly being Cybermen.
And what they gained in functional terms was immediately terrifying. It granted them these military and environmental advantages that made them seem, well, virtually unstoppable, even back on Telos.
Oh, they became physically formidable to an extreme degree. Their new metal limbs granted them the coordinated massive strength of 10 men.
10 men, that's incredible.
It is. And more importantly, for long-term survival, they developed inbuilt, highly efficient respiratory systems.
Which freed them from the need for breathable air, so they could operate indefinitely in the airless vacuum of space or even underwater.
Exactly. So they were immune to the environments that would kill biological life, but also immune to biological threats like disease.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The sources note they gained total immunity to environmental extremes, be it the searing heat of a planet approaching its sun or the deep cold of space. Their silver-reinforced bodies were described as practically indestructible by conventional means.
And that's all before you get to the intelligence.
Right. This physical power was matched by their immense calculated intelligence and resourcefulness. They were survival optimized to the exclusion of all else.
But the sources, they really stress that this incredible existential achievement came at a terrible, incalculable cost. This isn't just a physical change, it's the core of the Cybermen's tragic existence.
It is the ultimate cautionary tale about the pitfalls of pursuing perfection. In achieving immortality and freedom from physical pain, they systematically purged every aspect of what defined them as a civilization.
Human emotion.
Human emotion, love, hate, anger, fear, creativity, empathy, all were seen as detrimental weaknesses in the survival equation.
So they were just eliminated when the last vestiges of flesh were replaced.
They were. They became dehumanized, living only by the cold, inexorable laws of pure logic.
That transition from, struggling emotional beings to beings driven by pure logic is just chilling. So once they achieved that perfect emotionless survival state, what was the logical next goal for this newly perfected life form?
Hmm.
I mean, if you don't need to survive for happiness or love, what do you need to survive for?
They substituted a new, rational goal in place of emotion. Power. Power became the only logical extension of their need for self-preservation.
To guarantee survival, they had to control resources, and to control resources, they needed dominion over others.
Exactly. The sources mentioned they were eventually forced to leave Telos, perhaps after exhausting its resources, and they took refuge on a planet that was, cosmically speaking, very close to home.
Mondas.
Earth's long-lost twin.
Mm-hmm.
And that connection immediately escalates the threat from some distant cosmic problem to an imminent local disaster. It does. Their return to Mondas, which had somehow drifted back into the solar system after millions of years, signals not merely a search for refuge, but a final desperate move in their survival strategy. They had maximized their personal survival, but now they needed to ensure their energy source lasted.
And that need meant turning Mondas itself into a weapon aimed squarely at Earth, its original companion.
Okay, let's shift focus now from deep space philosophy to the immediate high-pressure setting of the conflict. Space Tracking Station Snowcap.
Right, located in the then-near future of the year 2000 AD. The sources paint an incredibly specific atmospheric picture of this location.
The setting is crucial for establishing the isolation and the atmosphere of routine. Snowcap was situated almost exactly over the South Pole.
And the facility itself was this long, low, squat structure, a miniature version of the massive Cape Kennedy tracking station.
And the incredible detail is that the entire base was located under 6 feet of solid ice, constantly being hammered by blizzards and a terrifying force 16 wind.
So, on the outside, it was a hellish, frozen landscape. But the interior environment seems to have been engineered to be the complete opposite, creating this sharp, strange contrast for the inhabitants.
Exactly. Inside, the atmosphere was described as brilliantly lighted, close, and overheated. This led the men to work in relaxed, closed singlets and open-neck shirts, a stark, almost uncomfortable contrast to the deadly cold and ice inches above their heads.
A contrast that really amplifies the shock when the exterior world finally breaks in.
It does. This was a high-tech, predominantly military installation, and we meet the key personnel running the show.
First, we have General Cutler, the dominant American soldier in command.
He's described as tall, firm-jawed, a figure of command, often seen with an unlit cigar perpetually clamped between his teeth, seemingly unaffected by the close atmosphere. He represented the military authority.
And then there's Dr. Barclay.
The Australian physicist who provided the scientific backbone, and Dyson, the English senior engineer, focused on technical application.
And Cutler, through sheer presence and rank, easily dominated the dynamics, accustomed to being obeyed instantly.
The mission they were tracking, Zeus 4, sounds routine for the year 2000 in this timeline, which is a great way to lull everyone into a false sense of security.
Oh, completely routine. Zeus 4 was an atmosphere testing probe, performing cosmic ray measurements, aiming for a predictable re-entry splashdown in the Pacific.
And the 2 astronauts, Major Schultz and Williams, they were relaxed, even bored.
I think Schultz, the veteran, remarked that spaceflight was becoming a little too easy.
Right, this confidence in routine and in their superior 2000 AD technology made them utterly unprepared for the ancient cosmic anomaly about to warp their trajectory.
And speaking of disruptive arrivals, this is where the central protagonists enter. The high-tech, highly controlled military base is violently contrasted with the almost chaotic, unexpected arrival of the TARDIS crew.
The Doctor, Ben, and Polly.
Their landing was an immediate clash of cultures and eras. Their arrival was unexpected, jarring, and the source notes immediate internal tension.
Ben, the Cockney sailor, and Polly, whom he affectionately calls the Duchess, are profoundly bored by the Doctor's recent unexciting landings. But worse, the Doctor himself is showing noticeable, distressing signs of rapid physical and mental aging.
The description of the Doctor is genuinely troubling here. What specific signs of deterioration were the companions noticing?
He was visibly stooping, suffering from increased absent-mindedness, and frequently confusing his current companions, Ben and Polly, with his former friends, Ian and Barbara.
So the sources suggest he was already nearing a breaking point before the crisis even began.
Yes, the landing itself, stepping out into the extreme cold of the South Pole, was a severe shock to his already frail system. Polly was shivering violently, the extreme cold burning their lungs.
And it's Ben who manages to push through the elements and find the signs of the buried base.
Right. He discovers 4 squat black chimneys protruding from the snow, emitting warm air, and the long black snout of a submarine-like periscope.
But their discovery was immediately met with a violent response from the military.
Hmm. Their swift capture by armed guards, with machine guns leveled, confirms they haven't landed in a friendly, research-focused environment.
It's inside the brilliantly lit, overheated guard room that Polly pieces together the temporal context.
She sees a calendar. The year is 2000. And this date is critical. It explains why the base has minimal personnel. Advanced computers do all the grunt work.
It also explains the casual reference to advanced space travel, like the return of a Mars expedition just 5 months prior.
Exactly. They are definitively on Earth, but adrift enough in time that the technology is advanced, setting the stage for a confrontation between human future and ancient cosmic past.
Okay, so the crisis truly begins when the orbital routine breaks down.
It starts with an impossible reading for Zeus 4.
Dr. Barclay's team detected an altitude reading of 1,100 miles when the capsule should have been at 980 miles.
Which is a massive discrepancy.
Over 100 miles out of position. It signals that a powerful external gravitational influence was actively dragging the capsule off course.
And this discrepancy forced Schultz and Williams to investigate their surroundings, despite already struggling with a sharp, inexplicable fuel cell power loss.
And that power loss is a key signal of the drain already starting to affect Earth technology.
It is. While conducting routine visual checks for Mars, they instead identified a large, fixed, planetary object in orbit between Mars and Venus, the astronomical impossibility of a 10th planet.
The discovery itself is shocking, but this is where the doctor, despite his frailty, has a moment of profound, terrible insight.
He was instantly galvanized. The nervous stroking of his cheek stopped, a sign that he had grasped the magnitude of the truth. He demanded to see the base telescope image, predicting exactly what they would find.
And once Barclay cleared and focused the image, the confirmation was terrifyingly immediate.
It was a planet approximately the size of a golf ball on the screen, but its land masses were unmistakable.
Because they eerily resembled Earth's continents.
The sources list them specifically: South America, Africa, Arabia, India. The resemblance was far too marked to be coincidence.
And the doctor, with immense dread, reveals the planet's name.
Mondas, Earth's ancient twin planet, which had somehow drifted back into the solar system after having been absent for millions of years.
And Barclay's immediate realization was the terrifying truth. This new planet's immense approaching gravity was actively pulling Zeus 4 off course.
And the sources detail the escalating disaster for the 2 astronauts with painful, intimate clarity. The gravity combined with the power drain means their technology is failing and their bodies are failing.
Their attempts to correct the reentry were futile and agonizing. The new coordinates they fed into the system proved useless.
Right. When Schultz fired the retrojets, the bar of sunlight across their chests, their only stable visual cue, failed to shift position. They were flung into a dizzying, uncontrolled tumble, forcing them onto the manual controls.
Which is a nightmare scenario.
A total nightmare. And the manual controls required strength they simply didn't possess anymore.
Because the growing power loss from the energy drain was affecting their life support and, critically, their physical strength.
Exactly. They were forced to apply immense, agonizing force just to move the joysticks. Williams had to literally help Schultz move his arm just to steer. Their faces were wet with sweat, their bodies feeling absolutely clapped out. Every movement was a struggle against exhaustion caused by the draining presence of Mondas.
The decision was made for an emergency splashdown, but the catastrophic acceleration continued.
When they fired the retros again, the fuel immediately ran out, confirming the systems were draining faster than anticipated. Instead of slowing, they began accelerating uncontrollably out of Earth orbit.
And then the picture transmission turned flecked with white snow.
As the cabin whitened with an intense final glare, and the monitor went blank. The capsule and the 2 men inside had been vaporized, lost beyond escape velocity. Their death was the first casualty of Mondas's return.
And this tragedy serves as the horrific, undeniable confirmation of the doctor's ominous warning, which General Cutler had completely dismissed just seconds earlier.
The doctor had warned Cutler, "Before very long, I'm afraid we must expect visitors."
Right. And Cutler, being a military man focused on routine and verifiable data, he just called the doctor's claims nonsense.
He was incapable of accepting a cosmic event outside his remit. The fact that the aged, seemingly absent-minded doctor was proven correct and that his own systems had failed shattered the general's reality and immediately ushered in the real physical threat.
I have to pause here and ask about the source material itself. How did the doctor know about Mondas? Was it a prediction or was it a memory?
The sources suggest profound personal memory. The way he identifies the planet by its continental structure, comparing it immediately to Earth, suggests a deeply held knowledge, possibly from his own distant past.
So Mondas wasn't just a twin planet.
It was, in the sources, described as long lost. The immediate dread and the physical deterioration that follows his realization suggest that seeing Mondas return triggered something traumatic and deep within his own biology.
Okay, so now the visitors have arrived.
The arrival of the Cybermen is described with brutal, chilling efficiency. They didn't engage in reconnaissance or stealth. They arrived with the sheer confidence of an unstoppable force.
The first appearance was terrifyingly implacable. 3 figures, clad in silver-armored suits, advanced slowly through the raging blizzard toward the guards protecting the TARDIS. Describe the visual shock of these things for the Snowcat personnel.
They were utterly alien and inhuman. They had concertina chest packs, signifying complex internal machinery, and their helmets were minimalist, featuring circular, blank eyes, mounted side lights, and a simple slit for a mouth.
Making them look more like robots built for war than any form of enhanced human.
Exactly. They were physically massive and completely silent as they marched into the machine gun fire.
And the guards quickly discovered that their standard infantry weapons designed to stop humans were totally useless against these invaders.
Totally. The source emphasizes this futility. A stream of machine gun bullets sprayed across the marching figures, but the Cybermen continued marching without even slowing down.
Immune to small arms fire.
Mm-hmm. Their response to the armed resistance was simple, terrifying physical force, devoid of effort or rage.
How gruesome was the counterattack?
It was quick and efficient. One guard was killed by what the sources describe as a terrible chop from a mechanical hand, shattering his neck. Another soldier had his helmet and skull smashed like an eggshell by a heavy crowbar swung effortlessly by the giant figure.
An inhuman display of strength.
Completely. Confirming the immediate superiority of cybernetic enhancement. After securing the exterior, the infiltration of the base itself used a brief moment of cunning disguise before dropping the pretense.
Right. 3 Cybermen, led by Cyber Leader Krail, utilized heavy white parka jackets to mask their appearance and silently entered the tracking room.
And the personnel were all focused on the blank monitor, mourning the Zeus 4 astronauts. The moment of reveal, when they slowly removed their snow goggles and hoods to expose the flat, expressionless masks and menacing silver helmets, caused immediate panic.
And their unique weaponry ensured that resistance inside the close quarters of the base was instantly suppressed.
When a soldier instinctively reached for a carbine, Krail deployed a short, silver baton-like weapon. The action was described with horrifying sensory detail. A red flash and a short, hard noise like a football rap.
And the guard just froze.
Instantly. Struck by the weapon's discharge, and smoke spiraled from his uniform. It was an overwhelming display of specialized power, instantly subduing the rest of the room.
Now we get to the core of the Cyberman philosophy through their emotionless dialogue, which is, for me, the most unsettling part of this entire encounter.
This is where the philosophical deep dive happens. Polly, driven by pure human empathy, challenged them directly. She asked if they felt any regret, if they care that the astronauts had just died.
And Krail's reply is the definitive, brutal statement of the Cyberman ethos.
Care? I do not understand.
It's not a denial of care, it's an incomprehension of the concept.
Precisely. They confirmed they were from Mondas, once human, who replaced their bodies to eliminate weaknesses. When Polly insisted they were just robots, Krail countered that their brains were just like human brains, except that certain weaknesses have been removed.
No need of love, hate, pride, or fear because they have achieved ultimate physical survival.
Exactly. And they then laid out the brutal cosmic logic of their invasion plan, linking their need for power directly back to their origin on resource-depleted Telos.
They explained that Monas's energy was nearly exhausted.
The planet had returned to the solar system, specifically to drain Earth, its twin, until Earth was completely exhausted. This would cause a total energy collapse. All power, all light, all engines, planes, and ships would stop the death of global civilization.
And the Cybermen just viewed Earth's vast energy reserves as a logical necessity for their continued survival.
Yes, and the cold, calculated offer they extended to the survivors was the ultimate expression of their logic.
Survival through assimilation, abandon Earth and travel to Mondas to become Cybermen, gaining protection and freedom from disease.
And they emphasized, we are only interested in survival. But Polly, the personification of emotion in this exchange, rightly pointed out the terrible price.
And when you rebuilt your bodies, you obviously forgot to include a heart.
And Crail's emotionless closing argument. That is one of your weaknesses we can do without.
General Cutler, ever the military commander, refused to yield to this overwhelming emotionless threat. His first instinct was to fight and raise the alarm.
He lunged for the communications console to broadcast the international emergency signal. The Cyberman responded instantly with a precise targeted attack. Crail's helmet light released a dazzling blue arc that struck Cutler's head,
Knocking him unconscious and leaving a visible black burn mark. The Cybermen were not interested in global resistance yet.
No, and the cover-up was immediate and required internal collaboration. When Wigner at Geneva picked up the brief emergency signal, Dr. Barclay, under duress and fearing for his life, was forced to lie.
He claimed the emergency was merely a static error caused by reactor moderator rods being out of sequence.
The military chain of command was successfully neutralized, giving the Cybermen temporary, silent control of Snowcap's external communication.
And we see Ben try to fight back, which only confirms the utter uselessness of standard human military technology against the Cybermen's armored bodies.
When Ben grabbed a dropped carbine, the cyber leader simply took it from him and proceeded to shatter the wooden stock and bend the metal barrel as easily as if it had been wire.
Wow.
The Cyberman warned Ben that resistance was useless, affirming they were stronger and more efficient than Earth people. Ben was then taken and locked away in a projection room, which, ironically, sets up the eventual counterattack.
Then Cutler recovers, and the situation escalates dramatically, fueled by both revenge and a terrifying personal stake that turns the general from a professional soldier into a frantic, obsessed father.
Cutler, having used a captured cyber weapon to successfully kill Crail and a second Cyberman with an immense electrical charge, a detail we must hold on to, suggesting a vulnerability to extreme localized energy, is immediately confronted with devastating news.
Right. Wigner contacts him to relay that Cutler's own son, Lieutenant Terry Cutler, was sent up in Zeus 5 to assist the lost capsule.
And this personal threat transforms everything. To stop the entire invasion force and save his son, Cutler makes the ultimate unilateral catastrophic decision.
Launch the Z-bomb housed in the Demeter rocket.
This is a military decision made from a position of personal terror. The Z-bomb was not a small payload. The source described it as a weapon that could split this planet of ours right in half if deployed incorrectly.
And Cutler ignored Wigner's explicit order not to take precipitous action.
He used a loophole in his orders to take any action necessary to stop the Cybermen, to rationalize the launch at Mondas.
But the Doctor and Dr. Barclay argue vehemently against the launch. This is where the Doctor, despite his failing health, provides his brilliant scientific rationale for waiting.
The Doctor, rallying his immense strength for one last moment of clarity, warned Cutler that launching the bomb would be an act of madness. He explained the nature of Mondas's return and energy drain.
Mondas was nearing saturation.
Exactly. Earth's absorbed energy, he theorized, could be too much for the already fragile, drifting twin planet, causing it to burn itself up and shrivel away to nothing. All they had to do was wait for the internal cosmic pressure to overwhelm it.
And he warned that a nuclear explosion would have horrific consequences far beyond Mondas.
Absolutely. He warned that detonating a nuclear weapon on a saturated Mondas would unleash terrible radiation onto Earth, and critically, it would destroy Lieutenant Cutler's capsule, possibly turning Mondas into a devastating supernova.
But Cutler, deafened by paternal fear and rage, rejected the warnings.
Which means Ben, locked away, realizes the survival of Earth depends on a frantic act of high-stakes sabotage.
He uses a long screwdriver found among scattered tools to access the ventilation shaft, which Barclay, communicating via the projection room window, confirmed led directly to the shielded silo room where the Z-bomb was being loaded.
This moment requires meticulous, complex instructions to execute under impossible stress.
So let's get technical for a moment. What exactly was Ben trying to sabotage, and why was it so critical yet subtle?
He needed to create a fault that was catastrophic enough to stop ignition, but subtle enough to prevent the Cybermen or engineers from tracing it quickly. Following Barclay's detailed diagram, Ben crawled through the cramped shafts, reached the gallery overlooking the bomb, and unscrewed the panel labeled PMP servo leads.
And the servo leads control the massive fuel pumps needed for the Demeter rocket's ignition sequence.
Exactly. The actual physical sabotage was tiny.
Incredibly precise.
Using a pair of pliers, he successfully snipped a single pin from one of the 4 small plugs within that panel. Barclay guaranteed this fault. A slight, untraceable drop in fuel pump pressure would prevent ignition entirely, but would take months, not minutes, to diagnose and repair.
The problem was Cutler interrupted him just as he finished.
He did. Cutler drew his heavy automatic pistol, and only Barclay's intervention saved Ben from immediate execution, though Cutler knocked Ben unconscious and completed the loading sequence.
With Ben unconscious, the countdown for the Z-bomb launch began, fueled by Cutler's manic need for action, convinced the doctor and Barclay were traitors.
The tension must have been unbearable. The countdown culminated at T-minus 5 seconds, but then nothing.
Silence.
The automated ignition failed. Polly was the first to realize the simple, crucial truth. Ben had succeeded. The rocket was sabotaged.
And General Cutler, completely unhinged by the failure and the threat to his son, aimed his pistol directly at Barclay, threatening immediate execution if the rocket didn't launch. The tracking room was paralyzed by the internal collapse of authority.
But just as Cutler's finger tightened, 2 things happened. A faint emotional reprieve and a terrifying physical disaster.
Lieutenant Cutler's broken, faint voice suddenly cut in.
Reporting that Mondas seemed to brighten up like a sun, then darken again.
Huh?
The doctor, momentarily galvanized, realized Mondas was indeed nearing its saturation point, the critical moment of cosmic failure.
But Cutler, frantic, ignored multiple alarms announcing the Cybermen landing, focusing only on his son's vanished signal.
The general snaps completely here, transferring his rage from the cosmic disaster to the people he holds responsible.
Cutler's face was demented. He focused his pistol on Barclay, the doctor, and Ben. He was about to execute them, believing they caused his son's death.
However, the external invasion force provided the final, fatal distraction. The doors burst open, a guard fell dead, and the tall, black-helmeted cyberleader Krang appeared.
And Cutler wheeled, fired his pistol.
The bullet harmlessly ricocheted off the Cybermen's armor, and Krang returned fire, instantly killing the general with an electrical charge.
With Cutler gone, the remaining survivors, Ben, Barclay, and Dyson, finally had a moment to think. And they connected the dots based on the Cybermen's previous strange behavior, particularly regarding the Z-bomb.
This is the moment of brilliant logical insight. If the Cybermen were so immensely strong and technologically superior, why did they need humans to move the Z-bomb into position in the first place?
Right, they could have done it themselves.
The only logical conclusion was that the Cybermen, with their highly advanced, mostly metallic, energy-dependent bodies, must be deeply afraid of radioactivity.
That insight immediately led to a desperate, brilliant defensive strategy centered on the lead-lined radiation room.
Ben's group, donned in bulky white anti-radiation suits, executed a plan based on deception. They played dead to lure a Cyberman inside.
Ben opened the door and staggered back, feigning collapse.
The Cyberman cautiously entered, but after only 3 paces, its chest unit began to whir. Lights flashed wildly, and it became completely immobilized by the high radiation shielding in the room.
And Ben locked it out, confirming their vital theory.
But securing one room wouldn't stop the full-scale invasion force led by Krang. They needed a larger, more mobile deterrent.
So they pivoted to weaponizing the base's nuclear reactor.
Ben, Barclay, and Dyson began lifting highly radioactive uranium rods, the intense power source for the base, using long pincers. They planned to use these rods as highly localized radiation traps in the corridors, turning the Cybermen's one weakness against them in an intense, slow-motion firefight.
The final confrontation was brutal, featuring chemical warfare, frantic firing, and the use of these glowing rods.
Cyberleader Krang tried to flush them out, deploying tear gas into the corridor, choking the defense team even inside their suits. But Haynes and Dyson, moving stealthily, carried the rods before them.
As the Cybermen approached the corridor intersections, they began shaking uncontrollably from the radiation effects.
Krang was killed by Ben's quick fire from the captured cyber weapon, and the remaining Cybermen simply froze, their chest lights dying out.
It's astonishing that this advanced, emotionless military force was defeated not by superior technology, but by basic physics, the one element their metallic, energy-focused bodies couldn't assimilate or control.
It's the ultimate thematic irony. They eliminated emotion, which made them vulnerable to human desperation, and they relied entirely on technology, which made them vulnerable to the most primal form of pure energy.
And the base, secured by a sailor, a physicist, and an engineer, had fought off the cyber invasion just as the cosmic drama outside reached its inevitable end.
So the cosmic drama outside was reaching its crescendo just as the human drama concluded. Everyone turned to the monitor screen, eager to see the result of the Mondas saturation point the doctor had predicted.
Again, the visual spectacle was monumental and terrifying.
Mondas, having reached saturation from draining Earth's energy, began to flicker violently. Massive, deep fissures and cracks appeared across its surface, spewing white-hot lava and intense internal pressure.
It began distorting, its land masses running together.
Until it was nothing more than a huge, shifting, amoeba-like corona of gas, dispersing violently into a supernova. The planet was gone.
And the Cybermen's fate, intrinsically tied to their home planet's power, was immediate and absolute.
Because they relied entirely on Mondas for their global power source, the instantaneous disintegration of the planet caused a synchronous fatal failure in the Cybermen. The 3 Cybermen remaining in the tracking room began to teeter and fall.
Their plastic chest units melted instantly.
In a gray, evil-looking foam coursed out of their suits. They were dead. The threat, globally, had ended not through human fighting, but through cosmic physics.
And the resolution for the surviving humans was immediate and absolute.
Lieutenant Terry Cutler's voice suddenly rang through loud and clear. His systems were instantly back to normal. The Cyberman menace, having failed everywhere their global power network collapsed, had ended entirely.
And Ben immediately rushed to the abandoned cybercraft to rescue Polly, who was shivering violently in the unheated ship, relieved but traumatized.
But the doctor's relief was mixed with profound physical distress. He had momentarily fainted from the shock of the Cyberman's presence and the cosmic events, and he was now revived but profoundly rapidly changed.
When Ben roused him, the doctor seemed to have aged decades in moments. He was visibly failing.
He urged an immediate departure from the dangerous scene, declaring with an unusual intensity, "It isn't over. It's not over by a long way." This dramatic, sudden deterioration, combined with the immense cosmic trauma he had just witnessed, signaled something fundamental was changing deep within his alien biology.
This intense internal conflict and physical failure triggers the most dramatic event in his existence, regeneration, and it was made terrifyingly obvious inside the sanctuary of the TARDIS.
Ben and Polly, hanging up their heavy furs, realized the doctor was missing. They rushed to the sleeping compressor couch where he rested. Ben noticed a horrifying change right away.
The doctor's hands.
Once long, thin, and veiny, were now shorter, thicker set reddish, the hands of a much younger man. It was a transformation in progress, violent and uncontrolled.
And the ultimate shocking reveal for his companions. They pull back his cloak to find a complete stranger in the place of their aged friend.
The old stooping doctor was gone, replaced by a man in his early 40s, with short dark hair and a swarthy appearance. The shock to Ben and Polly must have been immense. This wasn't their friend, but a stranger.
And the new man looked at himself in a mirror Polly carried, an act of vanity the previous doctor would never have performed, with a satisfied, almost pleasurable gaze.
He introduced himself simply and boldly, recognizing his own dramatic transformation.
I am the new doctor.
This regeneration, this violent reboot, marks the absolute end of the Snowcap deep dive and the beginning of a totally new chapter in his existence, forced by the sheer strain of facing the Cybermen and the death of Mondas.
What an immense foundational deep dive this has been. We've tracked a cosmic crisis that began with a search for immortality on Telos, accelerated at the South Pole in 2000 AD, and concluded with the cataclysmic, beautiful disintegration of a planet.
We saw the absolute, calculated cruelty of the Cybermen's logic, that survival must be prioritized over everything, even empathy, and contrasted that with the resourceful self-sacrifice of characters like Barclay and Ben, who risked nuclear catastrophe to protect millions.
Yeah, the profound irony that the Cybermen, the perfect machine men, were defeated by the very primitive force they feared, radiation and human ingenuity, is a perfect, poetic conclusion to their first arrival.
And the cost of that victory, for our central character, was the destruction of his own identity. The sources conclude with the dramatic, unexpected introduction of a completely new physical and psychological identity for the Doctor.
It raises a profound question that the sources leave open, a final thought for you to explore. Was this sudden, violent physical transformation, this regeneration, merely the final, desperate defense mechanism of an extremely aged body pushed past its biological limits by the extreme cold and the emotional weight of the crisis?
Or was it a deeper, necessary psychological shift? Did the immense physical and psychological toll of the events at Snowcap, the witnessing of pure, emotionless evil and the destruction of a planet force his very existence to fundamentally reinvent itself to carry on the fight?
It's a question of physical necessity versus psychological consequence that really defines his future adventures.